the idea is to show that Islam is a balanced way, a rational way. Many people have misconceptions about Islam linked with extremism. So the theme of the conference is to show Islam in a different light.
That we have this misconception, and I understand it was one of the key topics talked about in the conference. What does this mean when it comes to the Muslim leaders or religious leaders? Why do we have these misconceptions, and what are we doing to reduce it?
I think universally, internationally, Muslim scholars have been at pains to condemn terrorism and the acts of terror that have been perpetrated sometimes in the name of Islam. But unfortunately, I feel that those condemnations don't receive the type of exposure that they should. We're often asked in England, for example, why don't you Muslims say more against these things? And it's like, how much more do you want us to say? How many more times do you want us to keep repeating that we don't agree with this? Actually, Muslims have got to the stage now in UK where they refuse to say anything, because they'll say, why are you asking me to condemn it? I've got nothing to do with it. It's not my business. This is even nothing to do with me. Why are you asking me? So we've sort of gone in a reverse way now of not even agreeing to associate ourselves with it, even by condemning it anymore, because it's become so ridiculous. And we have condemned it over and over and over, as I'm sure the Sheikh will agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have done it in Canada, in the United States. We have done it again and again. As Abdul Rahim Greed mentioned, we don't get enough coverage. But every negative thing that happens by Muslims, for example, in our world where we live, if non-Muslim commits a crime, it's just a regular crime. But if a Muslim commits a crime, it's a terrorist act.
Do we feel marginalized?
Absolutely. I have to say, yes. We have many cases where just a regular person, could be mental, it could have a personal issue, it could be under a lot of stress, but because he's a Muslim, automatically everything changed and turns into this is an act of terrorism. If we come back to the question that you asked, the purpose of the conference, again, is to educate Muslim and non-Muslims alike. To educate, there's a lot of young people, I would say, who would also learn from the conference a lot of, new material, new things about their religion as well. We also want to educate the non-Muslims. We have non-Muslims who attend the conference that Islam is, as Abdul Rahim Green says, a balanced religion. And we said the middle path is because, we don't give up the world and, forget about our creator and the purpose of our lives and our faith. And at the same time, we don't just concentrate on being a faithful person or believer and just stay in a mosque and not get involved in the worldly life. So what we do, we're trying to teach everybody, listen, this is what the Quran said. Clearly, Allah said in the Quran, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا, which means do not forget your share of this world. Live like a decent person, act like a decent person, be good to your neighbors, come to the mosque at the same time, and so on. So the whole idea is to educate both Muslim and non-Muslim alike about Islam.
Said, that we have distorted information or misconceptions about Islam. We've seen clerics be at pains to explain that Islam really is a religion of good faith and whatnot. But does this mean that we have an information vacuum, that the youth and most of them choose to go the other way?
Number one, the social media is one of the most powerful sources for these young people. These young people, they don't need, in the past, the media used to say this masjid or this mosque is doing such and such to turn youth into extreme youth. But the truth is, the social media is available for anybody who wants to, whatever they want to search for. As a Muslim, what we're trying to do, again, is just to educate the general masses about the beauty of Islam, the true face of Islam. We're not going to condemn anything or anyone that somebody else is doing. Our job is, right now at this point, is, hey, this is what Islam is, this is the beauty of Islam. But a question that I always ask the media is, why every negative thing about Islam is magnified? Every good thing that
You
we
feel
do.
like it's magnified?
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you that myself and Green, we've been talking to these young people. We've been educating about these young people about the true Islam. None of that would ever got a coverage that we needed. However, if one little thing happens.
But we've had the Islamic annual conference that we have given massive airplay.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Well,
Actually,
I'd like to make a contention that I don't think, if that's what I thought you might have implied, that most of the youth are going the wrong way. That's really not the case. I mean, it's a very, very small number. The numbers are really small. The vast majority of Muslims are, and the youth are, law-abiding citizens and citizens of their countries. And because that's part of our religion. Part of our religion, although the concept of citizenship exactly didn't exist, but, the part of being a good member of the community. I'll give you an example. The Prophet Muhammad said that faith has 72 branches. The smallest branch of faith is to pick up something harmful from the road. This is the smallest act of faith. If there's something harmful in the road, pick it up. This is the concern a Muslim should have. For everybody, it doesn't matter whether it's an animal or a person or Muslim or non-Muslim. The concern is there for everybody. This is what our religion teaches, and the vast majority of Muslims are like that.
Yes. But Grin, the issue of radicalization, it is among the key issues you talked about in your conference. Initially, we thought the youth that were being radicalized, which indeed was, they were the uneducated ones, the unemployed ones, the ones who would say are desperate and are looking for an alternative for fulfillment. But now, the recent past, the kinds of people we have seen being radicalized are the educated ones, good jobs, good families, perfect lives. Is this a new face of terror that you're facing? And as Muslim leaders, what are we doing?
Okay, so still statistically, the vast majority are uneducated, certainly about their religion. There are a few exceptions that you've mentioned, but still statistically, the vast majority are uneducated. But I think what is important when we discuss the issue of radicalization, and I wish everybody, especially in Kenya and African people who have been through colonization, they need to understand what is the underlying agenda. When people start blaming Islam and saying the problem is the ideology and ignoring the root cause of the problem of colonialization, neo-colonialization, disenfranchisement based upon religious bigotry and racism, these are the real issues. And it's a long-standing practice of white people, of Westerners, of colonial people, that instead of dealing with the problem of disenfranchisement, of the real problem of the masses, they love to blame it on ideology. And if you look back in history, it's the same story. So Islam ideologically is not any more violent than any other religion. It deals with the practicalities of life, but it's not ideologically any more violent. There are verses about warfare, but every verse about warfare is preceded, and after it comes a verse about peace. So the issue here is not being tackled. Again and again, what are these terrorists saying? They're saying our problem is foreign policy, people invading our lands, this and that. I'm not saying this excuses terrorism. It's wrong. But these issues have to be looked at. And why are Muslims being singled out? Why is Islam being victimized? Why are Muslims painted as terrorists? But when a white man does exactly the same thing, whether it's England or the United States, he's called a lone wolf, he's called a man with mental problems. Even though the act that he does is an act of terror, he is never called a terrorist.
Fair enough. But looking at statistics of some of the terrorism acts we've seen in the world, in Kenya we're dealing with Al-Shabaab, same as Somalia. Nigeria is dealing with Boko Haram and its neighboring countries as well. We're dealing with Al-Qaeda, and the recent one from Brussels and Pakistan could have been from the same thing. Probably this
all
is
you're
why
talking about is the stuff you've seen in the media.
Yes.
If you look at academic studies, 90% of terrorist activity is not done by Muslims, 90%. In the United States of America, the vast majority of terrorist attacks are done by white supremacists, not by Muslims. You never imagine
So
that.
are we saying that Muslims are being victimized in the war against terror in the country?
All I'm trying to say, we're not denying that there are people doing this. The question everybody watching this has, and you have to ask, is why are you able to give a list of all these Muslim extremist groups? But if I ask you, name me one white supremacist terrorist group, name me other non-Muslim who are committing 90% of the terrorist attacks in the world, why can't you name them?
And not only
Answer.
that,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
no, not only that, like look what's happening in Central Africa right now. Nothing and nobody ever called those people killing Muslims terrorists, you know. But a little boy, you know, carrying a knife somewhere in the, you know, the world, he's called a terrorist. Now, coming back to the question that you asked, and you said there are youth who are, you know, well educated. Now, what kind of education are we talking about? Are we talking about what we call now the secular education?
Yes.
Yeah, but are they Islamically educated? Do they know what the true Islam is teaching?
Very important.
If they're not Islamically educated, I don't care whether they have the PhD in this or PhD in physics and all this, they still ignorant because the act that they did out of ignorance. So what we're saying is that our job is to educate Islamically these young people what is the right way and what is the wrong way, to avoid it, to avoid the wrong way, and to be on the right
And
path.
so far, could we say we have been successful in this course?
Absolutely. And by the way, you know, for we've been doing a great job, as a matter of fact. I don't think the Muslim scholars they get enough credit for that. But one of the things that I found in Kenya is the media is fair. I don't think, you know, I've been here, this is my third year to be part of the conference, and I found the Kenyan media being very fair in the middle. As a you know, people who are living in the West and we're trying to educate our youth, you know, we do it. We educate our youth. We talk to them about radicalism. We talk about what to do and what not to do, and we don't get paid by the government. We don't have, you know, a budget that is coming to take care of us. You know.
Can I say something very important? On the back of what I said, I don't want to be, you know, responsible in anyone's mind for pushing a narrative of conflict. You know, we need to learn to get on with each other. Whatever the past was, whatever people are doing, you know, everybody should mutually respect everybody. What we want is fairness. What we want is balance. What we want is the opportunity, which you've given us, and we really
Right.
respect that,
Right.
to put our point of view across. I think if more people had that opportunity, there would be less frustration, less aggression, and less of these problems.
The war on terror. Do we feel like the world is making progress when it comes to fighting terror? Are we making any progress? Are we not succeeding? And if not, what might be hampering this?
You know, I'm going to be addressing this issue from my point of view. I think if the media start being fair, a lot of this could be avoided. Let me give you an example. A little boy in Canada, right, in wintertime under the snow, playing with the snow. How does he learn about Boko Haram in Nigeria? How does he learns about Shabab in Somalia? It is through media. If this information was not given to these youth, you know, in consistent basis, I think a lot of youth would have been, you know, they would be engaged with other things, sports, whatever, you know, other activities. And I think when we say, you know, was it terror and war
The one terror,
on
yes.
terror? There are a lot of other elements that need to be addressed. There are Islamophobia. The Islamophobia is one of the biggest businesses nowadays, you know. So I think there's a lot of other area that we should look into.
You've mentioned that the media is responsible for talking about these terror groups. If really it wasn't in the media, the world didn't know about it. But this is what the world is tackling as of now. So many countries, and terrorism is not an isolated issue. The whole world is tackling this right now. These ideologies that terror groups, the ideas that the youth are given, those who are radicalized, what are we doing to counter that? Because they must be really strong for someone to abandon their life and decide to travel out. There must be really strong ideologies being put in people's minds, and not only Muslims. We've even seen Christians who travel to go do that. What are we doing to counter this?
You know, really, I think that if you just bring everything down to your local level, think about yourself. Think about someone who's doing something terrible. I mean, there's